All right, today we're doing quadratic equation. What you need about quadratic equation is that this is the parent function right here, x squared plus bx plus c. All right, there's an easy way of factoring quadratic equation, right? And when you factor it, okay, when you factor x squared plus bx plus c, you get this. X plus m and then x plus p. The thing you need to know is that m plus p gives you b. So these two numbers add to give you b. And that when you times m and p, you get this number. So when you multiply those two numbers, you get c. And so when you have a quadratic equation, you can solve it or factor it knowing these two rules right here. And that it adds to give you this number and multiplies to give you this number. Alright, so write these two down. Alright, for the first set of problems we're going to do, B and C are both positive. Right? For when they're, because you have to look, first thing you can do is always look at your signs and figure out, is B negative or is C negative, or is both of them negative, because it changes your rules and what you're looking for. Right, here they're both positive, so this is what I look for. Right? I'm looking for two numbers that add to give me 9 and multiply to give me 20. Because we said M and P would add to give me 9 and they would multiply and they gave me 20. So I got to find two numbers that would add to give me 9 and multiply to give me 20. So I just go through and I go through the factors of 20. What are the factors of 20? 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Are there any others? No. So would any of those add to give me 9? 1 and 20 wouldn't. 2 and 10 doesn't. But does 4 and 5? Yeah. Yes. So that's what I'm going to use. Those are M and P. So for these, the easiest thing to do, you just write x plus one of those numbers and then do x plus the other number. And that is the answer. All right. For something like this, where B and C are positive, this is all you have to do. Okay? But again, you have to be aware of what these signs are because it'll change different things. Here, again, B and C are both positive. So I'm looking for what adds to give me 11 and multiplies to give me 24. So you go through your factors of 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Do we see anything that might add up to 11? 3 and 8. So D plus one of them, and then do D plus the other one. So 4 here and 6 here. There's your answer.
4 and 6.
Not 4 and 6. 3 and 8. I don't know what I was thinking there. 3 and 8. Any questions? All right, so write this down. Now this rule here I wrote, okay, to help you is when B is negative and C is positive, which you can see here, this is example, when B is negative and C is positive, M and P are both negative. M and P have to both be negative because they would add to give me a negative number, and when you multiply two negative numbers, you get a positive number. So they have to both be negative, right? Or they wouldn't add to give you a negative number and multiply to give you a positive number. All right? So we're looking for two numbers that are both negative. So what would add to give me negative 8 and multiply to give me positive 12? Well, go through your factors of 12. Right? And these are the easier ones because you know they're both going to be negative. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Right? Would any of these add to give me negative 8? 2 and 6. Right? So since I know they have to both be negative, I do x minus one of them, and I do x minus the other one. And usually I just go ahead and I write that out, and then I find out what the two numbers are, 2 and 6. Which if you want to check, you can always check. foil these out, right, you would get this right here. So then you did it right, so you don't have to do any of these other numbers. It must be 2 and 6. Okay, -2 and -6. Any questions how to do that? Let's do a couple more. Write these down. The first one, w squared minus 11w plus 28. Right? B is negative and C is positive. That means they both have to be negative numbers. Right? From knowing my rule, right, they have to both be negative to when they multiply, they give you positive. So what would add to give me -11 and multiply to give me positive 28? Any ideas? Just think it. Okay, what?
No. Wait, 4 and 7.
4 and 7? Probably. Like if you want, okay, you could go through your factors. But yes, it would be 4 and 7. Okay? They're both negative, so the order doesn't matter on which one goes where, and that's your answer. Any questions?
No.
Now on this one, right, you have 21 minus 22m plus m squared. I don't like the looks of it because that's not what I'm used to. Right? Because this is still B, but this one is C. Okay, and if that confuses you, you can just rewrite it because order doesn't matter with addition. To where it's something now you can use, something now we're used to. You don't have to, okay, as long as you remember that which one's which. Okay, the one at the end is C, okay, because it's not like a variable squared, right? It has to be a variable squared. It has to be something squared. 21, is that a square? No. Okay. So, what would add to give me -22 and multiply to give me positive 21? Exactly. Because 1 and 21 would be a factor of 21. And yes, if you add those, you would get -22. So m minus one of them and m minus the other, because we know that they both have to be negative. All right. Any questions how to do those? No. Now let's talk about the case where C is negative. When C is negative, hey, it doesn't matter what B is. If C is negative, then they have to have opposite signs. M and P are going to have opposite signs. What does matter what B is which one's going to be the negative number and which one's going to be positive number. Because opposite signs, one's positive, one's negative. Which one is which is determined by what B is. Here, B is positive and C is negative. Knowing C is negative means they have to be opposite signs, because the only way you can multiply and get negative numbers and get a negative number is that they have to be opposite. Right? But then you look at what adds to give you 2, right? That adds to give you a positive number. So the bigger number's got to be positive. Right? That's the only thing that matters there. Okay, so I got to go through my terms of what would multiply to give me -15, that would add to give me 2. Right? But first thing I'm going to do is I know they have to be opposite signs. So I write x minus a number and I write x plus a number. And I just got to figure out what those two numbers are. So what would multiply to give me 15? I know 1 and 15, 3 and 5. Right? Would those subtract to give me 2? Yes. So which one's got to be positive? Does 5 need to be positive or does 3 need to be positive? If they add to give me positive 2, which one would need to be positive? The bigger one. Since B is positive, then biggest number's got to be positive. So 5 would go here and 3 would go here. This is the only time, when C is negative is the only time where it matters which one's which. Okay? Which the order doesn't really matter. I could do x plus 5 here and x minus 3 here. The only thing that matters is what sign is in front of those two numbers. Okay? This is the only time. Here we have x squared minus 7x minus 18. First thing I look for, and like I told you, is the signs. The first one I look for is C. C is negative. So that means that M and P have to be
Negative.
opposite. Okay, M and P have to be opposite because C is negative. Then I look at B. B is negative, meaning the bigger number is going to be negative, right?
Right.
So I go ahead and I just write x minus a number and x plus a number. You can do it the other way. You do x plus a number and an x minus a number. And then I go to work. I figure out what would add to give me negative 7 and multiply to give me negative 18. So go through your factors of negative 18. Right? 1 and 18. 2 and 9. Right? 3 and 6. Right? Any others? Right? You like 2 and 9? Right? Because think about it. If they were opposite signs, right, they would give me 7 or negative 7, right? Which one needs to be negative? Which one needs to be in the first bracket? Right? So 9. And 2 needs to be the positive? Right? Which that would be right. If you ever don't believe me or if you ever want to check, you can always FOIL. Right? First, we give you x squared. Right? The outer terms would give you 2x. The inner terms would give you negative 9x, which what's 2x minus 9x? 7x. Right? So I must have done it right. X minus 9 and x plus 2. Right? Any questions?
No.
I want you guys to do the next one. Y squared plus 13y minus 48. I see C is negative, so I know they got to be opposite signs. I see B is positive, so I know they're going to be opposite. The biggest one's going to be positive. So I do y plus 1 a number and y minus a number, and I just think about what would add to give me 13, multiply to give me negative 48. Going through my terms of 48, I'm just thinking I'm pretty sure it's going to be 3 and 16, which 16 minus 3 would be 13, so it must be those two numbers right there. Solve by factoring. So now we're going to solve for x, what would make the x true. So again, just like yesterday, we always have to set these equal to 0. So to do that, I'd have to subtract 27 to both sides. No. Now it looks like a quadratic equation. It looks like x squared plus bx minus c. No, when c is negative, means that one of them's going to be positive, one of them's going to be negative. And seeing that b is positive, I know that the bigger number's got to be positive. So now I just go through my factors of, so I'd see what would add to give me 6, multiply to give me negative 27. Easy, 3 and 9. 9 would have to be the bigger number. So you set it equal to 0. So then I do x plus 9 equal to 0. So x must be negative 9. And then you do x minus 3 equal to 0. So x must be 3. Which you should always check. Always check. So let's plug in negative 9 up here for x. Negative 9 times negative 9 is 81. And then negative 9 times 6 is negative 54. 81 minus 54 is 27, which, hey, negative 9 works. Then I try 3. 3 squared is 9. And 6 times 3 is 18. Kyle, what's 9 plus 18?
27.
Alright, so there's my two numbers, 3 and negative 9. X squared plus 3x minus 18. It's already set to 0 for me, so that was nice. Knowing C is negative means one of them's going to be positive, one of them's going to be negative. The bigger one's got to be positive because B's positive. So I figure out what would add to give me 3 and multiply to give me negative 18. 6 and 3, obviously. And set that equals 0. So x must be negative 6 or positive 3. Because you do each one of those like that. Check your answer, yes and yes. So there you go. There's your two answers. Here's your homework assignment.